Welcome back, ladies and gentlemen. This is Wakili Kitty. I'm an advocate of the High Court. Today I want us to talk about tax matters. So there's so many people who once KRA knocks on their door, they get into panic mode and anxiety and all these kind of things. And today I just want to demystify that process. What should you do when KRA knocks on your door? What are your rights within the law when they do that? And how can you navigate out of that situation? All right. So Waswahili husema dawa ya deni ni kulipa. Dawa ya deni ni kulipa, or if you want in English, the ultimate solution for a debt is paying the debt. Okay, so so let's start. Assuming this is how the KRA will approach you. They'll issue a tax compliance notice and tell you, hey, we, from our independent assessment, we are of the considered opinion that you have not complied with certain tax heads. It could be VAT tax, it could be income tax, it could be excise and custom duty tax, and they tell you you've not complied, and here is the amount that you owe us. Then they tell you, for instance, 100 million. You owe us 100 million, and they issue you in form of an assessment. Okay, so once they do that, they'd expect you to furnish them with some documentation, supporting documentation, so that you can demonstrate that it's true you do not owe them that amount of money. So maybe there will be correspondence between yourself and KRA, and you share documents. It could be books of accounts, it could be invoices, it could be vouchers, it could be bank statements, all in an attempt to demonstrate that you are not liable to them to that extent of tax liability. Okay, so after the back and forth, KRA will then make a decision. In law, it's called a tax decision. They will now say, after we've assessed everything, we are of the considered opinion that it's not 100 million, but we think that you owe us, say, 80 million. And they communicate to you in form of a tax decision. Now, once they give you a tax decision, it's like a final assessment from their end that this is what we think you owe KRA and you're supposed to pay, failure to which then we will recover. And of course, you know, KRA recovers tax in different forms. They can freeze your accounts, they can issue urgency notices, they can get into distress proceedings. So if they issue you with a tax decision, that's now when you approach a lawyer or a tax agent, preferably a lawyer, because a lawyer then will be able to even defend you before the tribunal and other forums, including the High Court and the Court of Appeal, in the event you need to appeal that decision. So it's after they've given you a tax decision that you consult a lawyer, okay? And then you will have 60 days. You will have 60 days to submit to KRA, that is Commission of the Domestic Taxes, what we call a notice of objection. A notice of objection is basically you objecting to the tax decision that the Commission of Domestic Taxes has issued you. So, of course, the tax decision would stipulate the extent of tax, as I said, kama ni 80 million that one may arrive at, and then now you're expected to lodge in a notice of objection. So, once you lodge in a notice of objection, the notice of objection itself will stipulate the grounds of objection, why you feel that the assessment by KRA or the tax decision is unfounded. And then you'll also need to give the amendments that you are suggesting, and you need to give the reasons for those amendments that you're seeking, okay, in your objection, in your notice of objection. Okay, KRA, so the Commission of Domestic Taxes will have an option. Will have an option to either say that the notice of objection you've lodged is valid or invalid within 14 days of receipt of your notice of objection, or of determination of determining whether the objection is valid or otherwise. So they'll tell you this notice is not valid or this notice is valid. So the grounds upon which the commissioner can tell you that the notice is invalid is if the notice does not have proper grounds, it does not have the amendments recommended and the reasons thereof, and if there's no documentation. They'll give you the reasons as to why the notice of objection is invalid. Or if, assuming they've given you an assessment of 80 million as the liability, and in your notice of objection you say that, okay, you object to 70 million, but 10 million you admit. So upon admitting any liability, then for your notice of objection, for the 70 million to be valid, you need first to pay the 10 million, or to get into an arrangement with KRA to pay the 10 million, so that now your notice of objection can be upheld as valid. So the tax decision had been issued. Within 60 days, you're expected to file something called the notice of objection. At the lapse of 60 days, if the commissioner will not have communicated to you an objection decision, then your objection will be upheld as valid. So objection is basically saying that assessment yenu ya 80 million si kubali kwa sababu mimi nimelipa tax hivi na hivi na hivi. So kama the KRA will not answer you back within 60 days, then it will be assumed that your objection was valid, like your response was valid, and so you have no tax obligation. Okay? So if the commissioner does not respond to you in 60 days, so the commissioner has a duty to respond to you within 60 days, the objection decision. So the objection decision is, we have considered your notice of objection. That is, you've read your grounds of objection. We have read the amendments you recommend and the documents thereof, and this is our decision. So kama assessment say ilikuwa, kama tax decision ilikuwa ni ya 80 million, maybe kwa objection decision, kwa objection notice yako, kwa notice of objection yako, you demonstrated why it shouldn't be 80 million. And now, at the objection decision, the commissioner wanasema, okay, fine, we've read your notice of objection, and we feel that tax haifai kuwa 80 million, inafaa kuwa maybe 60 million. So it could either go down or it could go up, depending on how the commissioner views it. The commissioner has a right to make amendments. So anasema si 80 million, hii liability yako tunaona ni kama 20 million. Okay? So if the objection decision haikufurahishi, then now you can appeal that decision to the tribunal. So within 30 days upon being issued with the notice of upon being issued with the objection decision by the commissioner, then you are expected to appeal to the tribunal. Remember, these timelines are very, very important because they are couched in mandatory terms. Kama for instance, commissioner hakukujibu within 60 days upon you lodging your notice of objection, that would mean that you're no longer liable in tax, and taxes could be into the hundreds of millions. But kwa sababu hakukujibu within that stipulated time, then it means you're no longer liable in terms of taxes. So these timelines are very, very important. So kama objection decision imefanywa na commissioner of taxes and you're not happy, then you have a right to appeal that decision at the tax appeal tribunal. Remember, these timelines are couched in mandatory terms, and the only way you can get an extension of time is if you approach court or if you approach the commission seeking for more time. So kama bado haijafika the tribunal level, you'll approach the commission. Kama for instance you're supposed to file your notice of objection within 30 days after the tax decision was issued. If you feel that timeline is too steep, you can write to the commissioner and the commissioner can indulge you with more time. Kama imeenda kwa tribunal and you're supposed to appeal the decision within 30 days, you can make an application to the tribunal and seek the tribunal to extend more time to you. So assuming now, let's go back, you're not pleased by the decision of the commissioner, and you want to appeal that objection decision to the tribunal, then within 30 days you're supposed to file something called a memorandum of appeal, statement of facts, and the tax decision that was issued. So memorandum of appeal, of course, it has your grounds of appeal, and then statement of facts explaining your story as to why you think you are not liable for that amount of tax, and the supporting documentation to support your debt. Again, as I said, dawa ya deni ni kulipa. So the supporting documentation is extremely important. But also the interpretation of the tax laws as to what you're liable for, what the deductions are, is also very crucial. And that is why whenever KRA comes knocking, don't assume that matter. It could be the difference between you paying 80 million or you paying 10 million as opposed to 80 million, or you paying nothing at all if you get someone who knows what they're doing. So as always, this is Wakili Kiti. Again, if you're not happy with the decision of the tribunal, within 30 days you can appeal that decision to the High Court. If you're not happy with the decision of the High Court, within 30 days you can appeal that decision to the Court of Appeal. So the avenues for appeal are fourfold. You start with the commission, you appeal at the tribunal, you leave the tribunal, you go to the High Court, you leave the High Court, you go to the Court of Appeal, if you're not happy with the decisions that were made in all those forums. So as always, this is Wakili Kiti. This is Law 254. If you have any issue with regards to taxation and any conflict with the tax man, we'll be happy to peruse your documents. We'll be happy to give you advisories on what is payable or what is possible. We'll be happy even to refer the matter to ADR, because another thing people don't know, that when you go to this tax appeal tribunal, you can seek court, make an application to court for the matter to be taken to the ADR, and you try and resolve it with KRA outside court within 90 days. In the event you fail to resolve it within 90 days, then the matter will go back to that particular forum that it was before, the same was it. So if it's tribunal, you go back to the tribunal. If it's court, it will go back to the court. But as I was saying, as always, I'll be happy to listen to, peruse your documents, give you guidance, represent you at the tax tribunal, and see to it that you pay a reasonable tax, or don't pay tax at all if you have been compliant. So yeah, cheers.